Okay, picture this. It is February 9, 2026. If you look at one side of the split screen, you have a scene that feels like it's straight out of a high-end diplomatic drama. We're talking secret envoys, quiet palaces in Oman, and, these very high-stakes hush-hush maneuvers.
Right, the classic cloak and dagger setup, very sterile, very quiet.
Exactly. But then you look at the other side of the screen, and it's just ripped from a techno thriller. I mean, you have a massive fleet of warships sitting in the Arabian Sea, fighter jets on the deck, and this ultimatum just hanging in the air.
It really is a moment of extreme contradiction. We are seeing a diplomatic opening that is just incredibly delicate, maybe the most delicate we've seen in years, and it's happening right under the shadow of what looks like an imminent military collision.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today. We have a huge stack of reports here, fresh off the wire from the Hindustan Times, some live coverage from The Guardian. Our mission, to unpack this renewed, white-hot tension between the U.S. and Iran. We need to figure out what actually happened inside those closed doors in Muscat, and whether we're looking at a breakthrough or a total breakdown.
And to really understand the gravity of this, you have to look at the timeline. I mean, context is everything here. This isn't just another round of will they, won't they. This is the first time these two sides have engaged in any meaningful way since that conflict back in June 2025.
Right. The 12-day war, we are definitely going to get into that context because you really can't understand the tension without it. But let's start with the immediate situation, the visuals, because they're wild. We have this armada, and I'm using that word because that's literally what Donald Trump is calling it, just sitting off the coast.
That's right. The USS Abraham Lincoln. It's a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, and it just arrived in the Arabian Sea. It was sent to the region weeks ago as part of a broader buildup, but now it's positioned right there in the Gulf.
And let's just pause on that for a second for you, the listener. When the U.S. parks a carrier strike group, which is what this is, it's not just a boat, it's a floating city, it's an airfield at sea, it's this massive projection of power. It's basically saying, we are here and we can reach you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a signal, and it's not a subtle one.
Yeah.
And as you said, the rhetoric around it is so heavy. Trump has dubbed this fleet an armada. Words matter in diplomacy, you know. Armada implies this very specific kind of overwhelming, almost crusade-like force. It's historical language, and it's designed to be intimidating.
It really feels like a throwback to, 19th century gunboat diplomacy, doesn't it? Just park the big guns offshore and see if the other guy blinks. It's a high-pressure tactic. So, looking at the reporting from Tehran, is Iran blinking?
Well, if we go by the public statements, the answer is a hard no. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, he was speaking at a forum in Tehran just yesterday, and he addressed this head-on. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Their military deployment in the region does not scare us."
That's the standard line, though, isn't it? They can't exactly say, oh, wow, big boat, we surrender, right?
But he was pretty explicit about the trust issue, too.
He was. Araghchi stated that Iran has little trust in the U.S. And frankly, looking at the history, you can understand that skepticism. He's questioning whether Washington is actually serious about negotiations or if this military display is just, intimidation. He's looking at the aircraft carrier and asking, is this diplomacy or is this just a stick to beat us with?
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the ships, right? This is a multi-front pressure campaign.
Yeah.
Even while these diplomats were packing their bags for Oman, the economic vice was tightening. Precisely. This is the talk and squeeze strategy. It's a classic tactic, but taken to an extreme here. While the talks were being set up, the Trump administration signed a new executive order. We are looking at fresh tariffs on countries that are still trading with Iran, plus new sanctions specifically targeting shipping entities and vessels involved in their oil exports.
So let's break that down. This isn't just targeting Iranian companies. This is secondary sanctions. This is going after the middlemen, the shippers, the insurers.
Exactly. It's about trying to make Iran radioactive to the global economy. So the U.S. is saying, we're ready to talk, while simultaneously cutting off the money and parking a carrier group next door.
Which sets the stage for what happened in Muscat. And honestly, this part has all the elements of a spy movie. We're in Oman, which listeners might know has historically been this quiet back channel, the Switzerland of the Middle East, if you will. But these weren't face-to-face negotiations, were they?
No, these were indirect talks. And the mechanics of that are, well, they're fascinatingly awkward.
Define that for us. What does that actually look like in practice?
So practically speaking, you had the Iranian officials in one room and the U.S. officials in another. They never see each other. They never speak directly. The Omani foreign minister, Saeed Badir al-Busaidi, was essentially shuttling between them, carrying messages back and forth.
The mediator in the middle. It sounds incredibly inefficient. I hope the guy's wearing comfortable shoes. But I guess it allows both sides to say, we never actually talked to them.
That's the point. It's about domestic consumption as much as diplomacy. Neither side wants to be seen shaking hands. But looking at the cast of characters is really important here. On the Iranian side, you have Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. On the U.S. side, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and this is the kicker, Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
Jared Kushner being there is a massive signal. That's not just a State Department bureaucrat, that's family.
It signals this is coming straight from the top. It bypasses the usual diplomatic machinery. It adds this layer of, personal political weight. It tells the Iranians that if a deal is made, it has the direct blessing of the White House.
And there was this very striking visual detail from the reports, a photo of the U.S. convoy with the American flag entering the palace grounds specifically after the Iranians had left.
Like ships passing in the night, or convoys passing the desert. It was choreographed to make sure they didn't cross paths. It's all theater, but the theater matters.
So they sit in separate rooms, they pass notes. The talks are now officially over for now. The convoys have left. Was it a failure?
You might think so, given they packed up without a signed piece of paper. But the tone reported in The Guardian was, well, surprisingly positive. Araghchi called it a very good start.
A good start, with an armada off the coast and sanctions ramping up.
Yes. He said there's an understanding to continue. And you have to remember, the bar here is just incredibly low. The fact that they're even in the same building is a breakthrough. The Hindustan Times emphasized this is the first contact since Israel's 12-day war with Iran in June 2025.
We mentioned that earlier. Let's double-click on that. June 2025. That feels like a lifetime ago in news cycles, but for these guys, it's fresh. The U.S. briefly joined that conflict, right?
They did. The U.S. bombed nuclear and military sites. It was limited, but it was direct military action. So for them to be communicating at all less than a year later?
Yeah.
That is significant. The trust isn't just zero, it's in the negatives.
So we aren't shooting at each other right now counts as a good start.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so they're talking, step one. But let's unpack the substance. If it was a good start, why didn't they sign anything? What's the actual disconnect?
It comes down to two completely different sets of objectives. I mean, they're playing two different games. The U.S. wants more for less, and Iran wants survival and sovereignty.
Break down the Iranian position for us first. What is their ask?
Their primary demand is relief from the sweeping U.S. economic sanctions. That is the boot on their neck. But, and this is a huge but, they have drawn a very hard red line on what they will give in return. They say they will only discuss the nuclear program.
Nothing else. Just the nukes.
Nothing else. Araghchi was very clear. He frames uranium enrichment not just as a strategic tool, but as a matter of sovereignty. He said, no one has the right to dictate our behavior. For them, giving up enrichment just because someone told them to, that's a humiliation they won't accept.
Okay, so Iran says, we'll talk about nuclear stuff if you stop crushing our economy. What does the U.S. want? Because I'm assuming just the nukes isn't enough for the Trump administration.
Not even close. The Trump administration wants a comprehensive deal. They don't just want to cap the nuclear program. They want to include Iran's ballistic missile program and its support for regional armed groups, the proxies.
We're talking about groups like Hezbollah, the Houthis.
Exactly. The axis of resistance, as Iran calls it. The U.S. views these groups as a source of regional instability. They want Iran to cut the cord.
And Iran is saying?
Iran is saying absolutely not. They refuse to include those subjects. They view their missiles and their regional influence as their insurance policy, their forward defense. If they give that up, they feel naked, just waiting to be invaded.
This brings us to perhaps the most fascinating and, frankly, sort of philosophical quote in this entire stack of documents. It's something Araghchi said about the atomic bomb.
Oh, this is a crucial piece of insight. It's slightly contradictory, but it's incredibly revealing about their mindset. It really peels back the layers of how they view power.
Read it up for us.
So Araghchi says, they fear our atomic bomb, while we are not looking for one. Our atomic bomb is the power to say no to the great powers.
Our atomic bomb is the power to say no. That's heavy. It sounds like something out of a political manifesto.
It is. And we need to really look at what he's doing there. On one hand, he's reiterating the standard line, we aren't building a weapon, which of course the West is skeptical of. But on the other hand, he is redefining what the weapon actually is.
Right, he's shifting the definition.
Exactly. He is saying that their ultimate deterrent isn't a physical warhead, but the capacity to resist. The ability to look at a superpower like the United States and just refuse to back.
So, in his mind, maintaining the capability, the enrichment, the tech, that's the leverage that allows them to maintain their independence.
Exactly. It's a psychological and political weapon as much as a military one. He's telling his own people and the world, we aren't surrendering, we are holding our ground.
Yeah.
The power to say no is the ultimate expression of sovereignty for a nation that feels under siege.
That's a powerful narrative. But it begs the question, if they are so tough, if their atomic bomb is the power to say no and they aren't scared of the armada, why are they in Muscat? Why are they talking at all? Because usually if you're feeling totally secure, you don't send your foreign minister to sit in a hotel room in Oman.
That is the question that unlocks the why now. Because if you look behind the curtain of this bravado, the situation inside Iran is, well, it's desperate.
We're talking about the domestic pressure cooker.
Yes. The reports from The Guardian highlight an intensified crackdown following anti-regime protests that have swept across the country. And these aren't just your standard political gatherings.
No, reading through the source material here, there are some really grim details emerging about a massacre in one Iranian city on January 8th.
That was just last month.
Right. And the details are harrowing. The government apparently shut down the internet and phone lines, a total information blackout. But witness reports are trickling out now, mentioning children, women, and elderly people being shot.
It's horrific. And strategically, what does it tell us? It suggests the regime is terrified of its own population. You don't resort to those measures if you feel secure.
It suggests they are losing control. And this links back to the economy, doesn't it? People protest when they can't feed their families.
100%. The experts we have in the source material, like Fawaz Gurges, he explains that the sanctions have effectively broken the backbone of the Iranian economy.
Broken the backbone, that's a strong visual.
It means the structural integrity is gone, inflation is rampant, unemployment is high. So the people are starving, they're angry, and the government is shooting them. It's a spiral.
So Gurges is making the point that the regime might be willing to make painful concessions, like pausing the nuclear program, not out of a change of heart, but purely to ensure its own survival.
Exactly. They need the cash. They need the sanctions relief to stop the bleeding at home. If they can't feed their people, the power to say no to the U.S. doesn't matter, because their own people might overthrow them.
So Araghchi is in Oman acting tough, but back home, the house is literally on fire.
That's the dynamic. It's a survival play. And the Trump administration knows this. That's why the armada is there. It's maximum pressure at a moment of maximum vulnerability.
And just to underscore how dangerous this moment is, we've got the ships, the protests, the secret talks. We have to mention the travel warning. This stuck out to me in the Hindustan Times report.
Right. The U.S. virtual embassy issued a Leave Iran Now alert.
But the U.S. issues travel warnings all the time. What makes this one different?
It was the specificity of the advice. Because flights are canceled, they are actually advising Americans to leave by land through Armenia or Turkey.
When the State Department is telling you to take a bus to the Armenian border, you know things are volatile. That is not a standard be careful warning.
No, it's an evacuation notice in all but name. It signals that the U.S. anticipates things could go wrong very, very quickly. They are clearing the decks.
It really paints a picture of a tightrope walk. You have diplomats in Muscat trying to find a face-saving way out, and outside you have warships and street violence.
And remember, the talks are paused. They said, over for now. They had to go back to their capitals, Tehran and Washington, and sell this good start to their bosses.
And their bosses are Donald Trump and the Supreme Leader. Not exactly two people known for their flexibility.
Precisely. Trump wants a win, he can brand. The Supreme Leader wants survival, but he can't look weak. The outcome is far from guaranteed.
So let's try to bring this all together for you. We've covered a lot of ground: the carrier, the secret meeting, the atomic rhetoric, and the bloodshed on the streets. What does this all mean?
If we zoom out, we are looking at a classic standoff over the definition of security. For the U.S., security means a comprehensive deal that strips Iran of its nuclear potential, its missiles, and its proxy network.
And for Iran?
For Iran, security is now about regime survival. They need the economic lifelines to stay in power, but they believe that giving up their sovereignty, their power to say no, is a death sentence of a different kind.
It's a paradox. They need a deal to survive the economy, but they fear the deal might kill their defense strategy.
That's the trap they are in, and the warships are just waiting to see which way they jump.
It's incredibly tense, and it brings us to a final thought I want to leave everyone with. We talked about Araghchi's quote, that fascinating line that Iran's atomic bomb isn't a weapon, but the power to say no.
Right. It's about the agency to refuse.
So here is the thing to chew on. If the economic pressure becomes too great, if the protests and the poverty force them to sign a deal, they will effectively be forced to say yes to the great powers.
That's the irony.
Which leads to the question, if their definition of their atomic bomb is the ability to refuse, does saying yes mean they have effectively disarmed themselves, regardless of what happens to the uranium?
Have they given up their bomb just by agreeing to sign the paper? That is a profound way to look at it. It certainly changes how we define victory and defeat in this negotiation.
Indeed. It's not just about centrifuges, it's about the psychology of power. We'll be watching the Arabian Sea and the wires from Muscat closely. The story is definitely not over. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next one.